If we wind it back a little bit, and before you said that housing stress is more than 30% of your gross income being spent on your rent where you live.
Yep.
And I'm even going to bring it further back than that because I'm getting ahead of my own question. What is the difference between social and affordable housing? And then how does QShelter propose to define affordable housing?
Yeah, it's another one I thought that would come up today. We've just had the National Housing Conference actually in Brisbane recently, and there's been a lot of discussion around this. Definitions are important. Some people get a little bit over this conversation, but I think it's critical to nail because investment flows from it, policy change flows from it, and we need to make sure that that investment is going into the right areas. So that's why it's so important. Just to go back to your first question, and this is really important for people to understand, social housing and affordable housing are two different things, so they're two different products. The easiest way to understand social housing is every state and territory has a public housing or social housing wait list, or public and social housing stock that people live in if they meet a certain criteria. So every state has a criteria for that. It will have a whole bunch of different, it's slightly different in each state and territory, but if you qualify for that, you can access social housing. Now that's housing that's predominantly or always built by government, state government, through federal funding contributions as well. And sometimes it's managed by the state government. They manage the tenancies. In other cases, the community housing providers, that industry will manage the tenancy. But effectively, social housing is for people that qualify for public housing and they're on the social housing wait list. So hopefully that's clear. The one that's less clear is the affordable housing category. And I think what happens here is if you look at housing type on a continuum, you've really got crisis and emergency accommodation first, so people who need a roof over their head tonight, nowhere to go, they might be fleeing domestic and family violence and a whole bunch of other different challenges. That's crisis accommodation. Need a room tonight, for the next week, for the next 10 days, etc. The next one up from that is transitional housing. So again, sort of temporary, but something I might have for the next 3 months. And then you're moving into social housing, which is a bit more permanent. Some people might have to live in social housing for the rest of their life. They might never be able to get back to employment and things like that. The next category up from that is what we call in our sector affordable housing, with a capital A and a capital H. And the reason I say that is we see it as a product type. And that product type, to go to your point on definition, would link to the bottom 40% of incomes on the income distribution. So the income distribution in Australia is 5 quintiles. The bottom 2 quintiles make up 40%. And affordable housing is trying to deliver subsidised housing for those people. So those people that are spending more than 30% of their household income, that's affordable housing to us. Housing affordability is a totally different thing and still incredibly important, because if there's not good affordability across the rest of the housing options, it just knocks more people down into disadvantage. And that group I just spoke about gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I wish I had a whiteboard to draw it on because it might be a bit clearer, but hopefully that goes some way to explaining that. For us, affordable housing as a product type is housing that goes into meeting the needs of people on the bottom 2 income quintiles of the income distribution, heavily subsidised by government to meet the difference between subsidised rent and market rent, and that's how a developer or an operator can actually make that investment kind of stack up as well.
No, that's a really clear definition, and I think probably until this year, I didn't, maybe not even like a few months ago, I didn't understand the difference between the two different product types.
Yeah, sure.
When there was a lot of conversation about what is build to rent, I didn't know how that even could possibly link up with that. So that is a very good explanation. Thank you.